Welcome everyone to our Albert's List webinar. It's our AMA session, Ask Me Anything. We've got two stellar recruiters with us today, April, Starlight, and Dan. I want to kick this off and get us going, so I'll give a quick intro to both of them, and then we'll just go right into questions. And as Albert mentioned, feel free to put in chat if you've got any burning questions, scenarios, and we'll try to make sure it's all answered. So Dan Roth is a highly sought after recruiter, corporate trainer, and public speaker. He is a staunch women's empowerment and neurodiversity advocate. He's helped job seekers find work in over 30 countries and is widely recognized as one of the top recruiters globally. We're so excited to have him share his professional insights as well as his quirky outlooks on the job search market in 2022. April Starlight has 10 years of experience in staffing and recruiting and trusted client relationships through many years of partnerships and communications. Her top priority for job seekers is ensuring that each and every placement is the right fit. You'll go on Eventbrite. We also have her agency link on there if you want to check it out and connect with her directly. So with that, I'll go ahead and start with some questions that I got from our LinkedIn messages in our Albert's List community. First question is, I'm looking to transition fields, and I've gotten variations of this, looking to transition fields, whether it's product going into marketing or looking to transition industries. I'm in CPG, I'm trying to go into tech. How can I position myself? I'm not quite a novice, but I don't have experience in the target field or function that I'm moving into. So I'll go ahead and start off, kick it to April, and then we'll hear from Dan.
Ooh, that is a tough one. Because when you're reviewing resumes, right, obviously, and sending them along to hiring managers or sending them along to the team, there's like the obvious choice candidate, right, that has their whole background is building up towards this particular career. And so when you have someone who's making a transition, that can be really, really challenging. So my number one piece of advice here, if you can get it, is a referral. So somebody who works in that company, someone who works in that team who can kind of advocate for you, like, hey, this person's making a transition, but this is how their skills kind of correlate to what we're looking for in this role. And then I think the second thing that I would say for that is just to phrase your prior experience in a way that it expresses the qualities they're looking for in that job description. So if it's like, maybe related to data or some sort of documentation, then talk about how you've documented data in your previous role that's unrelated to what you're jumping to. Kind of look through a different lens of what they're looking for. That would be my advice on that. Dan, you want to?
Sure. That was great advice. Before I get started, every time I do a presentation, I say, hi, my name's Dan, I'm neurodiverse. And the reason I do that is because you may see me playing with my little toys. You may see me tilting. It's all just part of who I am as a neurodiverse individual with a safe space. So I want to be clear on that. Second thing I'm going to say is a lot of the responses you're going to get from me tonight are very blunt. I provide blunt responses because I believe in being direct. Everything I say is for your benefit. So I am not a coach, and I do believe coaches are more in line to answer questions. That's one of my twin 2-year-olds. You're gonna hear that throughout the night. So I'm not a coach, and I don't always believe that I'm the best source when it talks about pivoting. What I will say in regards to this is, one, my own take, and then second, an extension of what April said. My own take on it is that people don't understand the power of transferable skills. I look at things like women that go on maternity leave and come back and immediately have the assertion, oh, I should go into customer service because I don't think I could do anything else. And I call BS on that. Because if you truly look at parenting in general, that's basically project management of the hardest kind. So everything that you're doing in life, regardless of whether you're pivoting or not, has some correlation to something else. In fact, if you look at what you've done previously, and then you look at a list of different job descriptions, you're going to see a lot of commonality in it. And it's really all about how you are taking that and how you are utilizing those to your advantage. How are you presenting it? How are you finding your UVP, or unique value proposition, and tailoring it towards that new position? So now I'm going to take this back to what April was talking about. So respectfully, I think that there's a big misnomer when it comes to referrals. Not all referrals are created equal. Here's what I mean. I work for Amazon. I work in the tech sector, our supply chain wing. If you're looking for an opening in our Prime Video doing some sort of marketing, I'm not the right referral for you. And the reason I say that is because we have thousands upon thousands of employees. So to me, or to the company, to that recruiter, I'm basically as far away from them as you are. Instead, what I like to suggest is utilizing the informational interview strategy to connect with somebody that actually does what you do in an organization. And this kind of touches on a question that was asked. I don't believe you should be asking right away for the resume to go to the hiring manager, but by connecting with somebody in your exact position, what's going to happen is they're going to go to their boss. Their boss would be the one that would be your boss. So they're the ones that ultimately are going to be making the decision. Recruiters are great. Recruiters have a lot of responsibility, but they don't always have the access to make that final decision. So the goal of the informational interview is to build the relationship so that it doesn't become a give and take. It becomes a relationship and a friendship. And thus they say to you, or when you have that discussion about, hey, I really want to work for the company, the response is, oh, of course, give me your resume. Let me talk to my boss about it. Then you get in with their boss, and their boss goes to the recruiter, hey, I want to bring this person in. And that's how you wind up nailing the transition.
That's awesome. That's some great insights on, and it's like a multi-layered question, switching from like department or function to like an industry. And so I feel like both of your perspectives kind of give light, like there's no one way to get to your end game. And so when in doubt, I mean, like try multiple ways. If one way doesn't work, try a couple of things. If not, maybe follow up with Dan and say, I tried this, didn't work. What else? So a good way to just kind of start this, because I'm seeing in chat, there's a lot of other sub questions to that. Like, I'm in engineering, I want to move into product. How do we move forward into that? So just in the spirit of, we have a ton of questions coming, I'm going to table those. Yeah.
Let me throw out an offer.
Yeah.
If we're getting a lot of similar questions and we get a list of those questions, I will personally go through and answer and send those out to whoever wants them, to make sure everybody gets their voices heard.
That would be great. I appreciate you, the gift of time. So I'm taking the inventory of all the questions. I've got it in Word. So if we don't get to your question, we'll make sure to get you connected. We'll also send out emails on how to connect to April and Dan via LinkedIn. So for whatever reason, it doesn't get lost, it gets lost in the shuffle, we'll make sure to get you connected. So a little bit of a lightning round, but I'm going to move on. So one of the other questions we got is, what is the average turnaround time between when a job posts and when they actually start interviews? Is there a set number of days they wait for resumes to come in, the first batch, before proceeding?
What do you think?
I would say that it's all over the place. It depends on so many factors. It depends on what is the workload of that recruiter like? What is the job market looking like? How flooded are they with other roles? Sometimes they may have like, a referral candidate or some people that they're considering. And so they're already talking to folks, and then they post to, make sure that they're basically like seeing who else is on the market as well. So it could be literally, like negative days. They could start talking to people ahead of time, to it could be 2 or 3 weeks, because sometimes a job is posted and then someone's either really busy, their workload, what they're working on is taking them other places. Or it could be that the job goes on hold for any myriad of reasons. Some, the hiring manager goes on PTO. They're uncertain if they're going to keep this role or move the headcount to somewhere else. So I would say it's really in flux, and there's not necessarily a rule on that.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, there are times where I'll find out where I'll be working on a role and the hiring manager will say, hey, I have 2 or 3 coming in the pipeline. So I'll have an idea of it and start building my pipeline. But there, I mean, it could, yeah, it ranges. I can't contribute any more than April already did.
No, it's awesome. I appreciate that. And it's good for those that are out there, wondering like, okay, I submitted an app and it's been like 3 or 4 weeks and I haven't heard back. So now you know the time frame, like there's multiple things that go into it. So long story short, don't be discouraged from that. I'm seeing a follow-up. Yeah.
Problem. Sorry, Elisa, you should know what you're doing with me. If you're waiting to hear back for that long, then I respectfully say you're doing something wrong. Because at that point, you should be connecting with a recruiter. You should be connecting with somebody at the organization to follow up and make that comment. Because the reality with a lot of high tech and a lot of the larger companies is we source out. So we look for candidates more than we actually take in. So there could be 1,000 people that are applying to a certain job, but I may be specifically looking and pinpointing who I want based on utilization of Boolean search and other recruitment techniques. So, I mean, this is obviously differs across the board, but as far as large companies go, that typically is the way it works.
Okay, love that you provided that. So a follow-up question is, after you submitted your application, I mean, you obviously want to be proactive. So contacting the recruiter via LinkedIn, what's a thoughtful way to, I guess, outreach? It's that the question is, what would you want to hear in this message as a recruiter?
So my advice on this has really, I don't know if it's shifted, but I have new insights on this because for most of my career, I've always encouraged people, hey, be proactive, reach out, try to connect with recruiter, try to see if you can, send an invite to that recruiter or a message like, hey, are you the recruiter focused on this? If not, can you refer me to that person? I've always thought that's a really good advice, and recruiting during this whole like great reshuffling, or if you want to call it great resignation, like all the different terms that are being used for this crazy job market. My perspective on this has really shifted. So I still do appreciate when people reach out to me on LinkedIn if I'm like hiring for a position, and to tell me like that they think that I'm a great fit. What I really love right now, just considering how crazy busy we are, like I'm working 12 and sometimes 14-hour days over the last 2 months. And so I love it when there's like something in there that lets me off the hook. Like one, like if you're busy, I understand. And, or also if their request is concise. So like, I've applied for X position. I think I'm a fit because A, B, or C. And then like, can you tell me if you're the right person or if I should contact someone else? That is actionable and quick for me. I can look through that and I can say, oh, sorry, it's not me. It's my colleague, Justin, or, whatever. And I can easily copy paste that message or forward it over to that right person and say, hey, here's a good proactive candidate. I haven't validated their experience or looked at if they're a match for your job, but I'm just like telling you here's someone that's proactive and reached out. That is easy. I can do that even when I'm busy. I sometimes get messages that are just kind of like someone's backstory, their history of what their personality is and why they're interested in whatever machine learning or why they love anime or whatever the thing may be. And it's like, if I can't scan it and quickly see, then I can't really do anything with it. And I also, at that point, it's like, I don't really take the time to respond because I got to move on to the stuff that I'm actually assigned, my deliverables that I have to get done. So long story short, my advice there would be to make it clear why you're a good fit and put in that actionable thing. Like, can you refer me to the right person? Or can you let me know any updates on this job? Something like that.
Hey, April, question for you. How many messages on average do you get per day?
On LinkedIn?
Mhm.
25, I think. Oh yeah. Probably not related directly to, can you refer me to this job? I probably get 4 or so a week that are like, hey, can you refer me? Or, I'm interested in this job, that job. So that's the other thing is, right, when you're reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, like I also have people trying to sell me a mortgage on LinkedIn, or like all these other like weird sales things, and your message can get like sandwiched in between those things. So you really want it to be actionable.
So I love what April said, and I'm going to be careful to occasionally have a short response because I know I can run long. Um, I run the largest platform connecting job seekers to recruiters on LinkedIn. I get 250 messages per day, and part of that is working at Amazon. I would love to be in a position where I could say, I will connect every single person that reaches out to me with the recruiter that's recruiting for that position. It's unrealistic, and my fingers would be worn down to the knuckle. So when you're reaching out to me, and April touched on something that, like, I don't want to call it a pet peeve because I understand why people do it, but at the same point, it's like there's enough good information out there that you should know not to. And that is, if you send me a 500-word essay, I'm going to look at you like you got 3 heads. Like, look, I am so glad your mother in England is doing well eating Cadbury for Easter, but I do not need to know that. Like, I really don't. Primarily because I'll be jealous because America doesn't have good chocolate, but that's a different anecdote. For me, short, concise, and I like when people pay respect to my time. I am very, very clear on what I can help and what I can't help with. For instance, I don't have access to internships. It's a completely different system. It's not like I don't want to help. I literally can't see it. Yet I get 50 messages per day asking for help with internships. You're probably not going to get a response from me because I've made it clear and the respect isn't being paid. At the flip side of it, if you are very, very clear and deliberate, I will go to any lengths of the earth to help. Even though I work for Amazon, I tell every single job seeker that I work with, once you're in my sphere, you're in my sphere. So even if a job opportunity doesn't work out at Amazon, I have connections to every major company out there. I will push you and get you referrals through my friends. But the respect has to be there, and it has to go both ways.
I just love that because you've kind of given a glimpse as to, just like the range of messages that you're getting in the inbox. And with a recruiter, I feel like you have to be very focused with your time. And it's like, this is in scope, this is not in scope. And if it's not in scope, I'm sorry, you're not going to get a response. So April was able to lay out kind of a nice template, like, hi, I applied for job ID like this. Like, do you know the recruiter? And then it makes it easy for them to respond. It's either yes or no, and then, move on.
Yeah.
So, and then I know with the Alberts list, Joe Cardio, he helps co-lead our boot camps. We have some templates that can potentially help with structuring your outreach so that you get a response. So just be sure to check the Facebook group for insights on that.
So Elisa, because it's on topic, I'm going to post a link in the chat. Last night I put out a copy of my newsletter. Ironically, it's called The Honest Recruiter, sarcasm intended. And I gathered data dating back to December on the connection requests that we actually receive, how many people actually send personalized messages, how many people have the open to work banner. So I'll post a link to it in there. It might provide some insight because it also goes in more into depth with how I determine whether or not I'm going to add you to my network. So as long as that's okay, Lisa, I'm going to post that in there.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think just having it oriented and kind of anchored to data really help. Oh. Got a
Sorry,
little Amber Alert.
Amber Alert.
No, you're good. I was like, oh my God.
I'm on Do Not Disturb. It came through. So now we know. We've learned a thing about technology.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, speaking of alert, we want to move into ATS because a lot of topics and questions on this. So a lot of folks want to know, what are some tips on getting your resume seen by ATS? So we talk a lot about job scan in our Facebook group, but are there other tools, tips, and tricks?
I think in my experience, the ATS basically does what the recruiter is tasked to do, but just maybe in a more automated and consistent way, right? So there's not really any difference necessarily in what the ATS is going to find versus what the recruiter is going to find if you're just generically looking through profiles of applicants and you're looking for a match. But I do think this kind of touches on the piece of trying to make a job transition where you really need to mark your transferable skills, because if you're coming into a job that you haven't been in before, you're not going to, light up all those keywords to look as relevant as some other applicants might look. So you want to make sure that the way that they're framing the experience in the job posting is the way that you're framing your transferable skills on the resume. So that's what I would say about that. And I have one other thing to mention, just to kind of piggyback on something that Dan said about how you choose to move forward referrals. I know this is off topic from ATS, sorry, but it's actually a really big deal if you are giving a referral, you're, like leveraging your friendships, your previous, anybody in your network. So if you're going to reach out and ask for that from somebody, you want to think about the fact that, they're putting their reputation on the line there. So you need to be like prompt and responsive if that person does call you back, and you need to like really respect that is really a gift, because they're going out on a limb for you, and think about it from the perspective of the person who you're asking their referral, right? Like jump through whatever hoops they may ask you. Like if they ask you to update that resume or include specific cover letter with maybe your reason that you're interested or anything like that, make sure you take care of those things when you ask for the referral. Okay, sorry, I hopped off topic, Dan.
No, you're good. So we need to have a conversation, because this is something that needs to be debunked once and for all, because I feel like talking about ATS is it drives me nuts. So here's the thing. Amy Miller, I don't want to take credit where I don't deserve it. Amy Miller, who is a recruiter for Amazon as well, did a really good article today. And what it touched on was the reality of what an ATS actually is. So if we break it down, an ATS stands for applicant tracking system. That's not applicant automated, burn the bridge, throw you out system. It's tracking system. So what that means is we utilize ATSs to keep track of candidates in our system. It's basically a large database. And the way that we use this for recruitment is that we have multiple ATS systems that we use. And we have these applicants, some are current, some are inactive, some haven't been touched in a while. And we track them, we put them through the system. So we state, okay, they're the first interview, second interview, third interview, final stage, blah, 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 blah. Or we can then look back and use Boolean searches. And if anybody needs me to explain what a Boolean search is, I'm more than happy to. I just don't want to presume that you don't know what that is. We use Boolean searches to look through in our system for people that may be right for the current roles, because while somebody may not have been right for a role a year ago, that doesn't mean they're going to be right for a role now. So this entire ideology, I don't know where this phantom idea that ATSs are taking in resumes and spitting them out. This is not Willy Wonka. They are not everlasting gobstoppers. That's just not how it works. And maybe it's because I'm in corporate recruiting and not in staffing agencies where there's this incredible volume. But I could tell you that I look at every single resume that comes through. I absolutely look at as my personal individual decision whether or not you go through or not. And I touched on it before. Most of my recruiting is outbound recruiting, meaning, yes, we get people that are applying to positions, but it's also our job to fill those seats. So there should be an understanding that we are actively going to be looking for candidates. Now, there was a question that was in the chat that I want to include in this response, and that is, well, why do recruiters look for people that are already in jobs? The flat answer is we're looking for the best candidates, regardless of whether you're in or out of a job. We need to fill our spots with the people that need to be there. Now, that's not to say that if you don't have a job that you don't deserve one. That is not even close to what I'm saying. But if I'm looking for a software development engineer that has 10 plus years experience because I'm trying to fill a principal role in my organization, there's very little percentage of possibility that they're on the open job market unless we're dating back to the start of the pandemic where there was just so much of a layoff. So then I have to be looking at people that are in these spots. Now, do I try to bring in people that are at smaller companies that I have the opportunity to get paid a lot more because I think it's the right thing to do? Absolutely. Do I try to go and target diverse populations in traditionally unresourced areas? Absolutely. But it's my job to find the best candidate for the company. And I'll land my plane and rant there.
There's one really good LinkedIn tip that what you were describing there, Dan, made me think of that could be useful for folks in this chat today, which is, when we're running a search in LinkedIn, right, we're entering our parameters, our Boolean search, looking in whatever location, whatever else we may be looking for, what kind of industry you work in, whatever. And then the search results come back and we see very little information at first. Maybe your photo, if you have one, your name, and whatever title. And then from there, we select whether we want to open that and look at it more or scroll to the next person, what have you. So I know that when you're looking for a job, it's very tempting to put like at the top, like, my name's April and I'm looking for work, right? But that actually, as a recruiter, is very unhelpful because, to your point, if we're looking for a software engineer, that doesn't tell me that you are a software engineer. So it would be much better to know, like, hey, I am a backend engineer and I work with, I know Node and Java and, a little bit of Golang. That's way more useful than I'm looking for a new opportunity, which is different. This is a separate thing from selecting the open to work button on your LinkedIn, but don't change your title away from what it is that you're looking for or what it is that you do. So taking us off topic a few places wherever there's a relevant little piece that I think could be helpful. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
You're
no.
talking to somebody with ADHD, like going off topic is second nature to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I love that. It's like, the element of surprise misdirection for you guys to see if you're keeping you guys on your toes. But yeah, I love that because a lot of people will ask and they'll say like open to work in their headline on LinkedIn. And it's not really helpful because when recruiters are looking for it, you would need it to say like software engineer or whatever the title is, include that. Otherwise you'll just get filtered out.
Yeah. And there's actually filters where we can look for job titles. Mm-hmm. So if you have your job title as software engineer, you're going to come back in the filter when we're looking for software engineer. If you say looking to work as your title, you're automatically invisible in all software engineer searches or whatever it may be, customer success or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sorry, Elise, I don't mean to keep interrupting you. Like, it's such a bad microaggression. And I mean that wholeheartedly. But April touched on something. Most people don't understand what the purpose is of skills within your LinkedIn profile. So let me give a 30-second overview. In your LinkedIn profile, you have the opportunity to place 50 skills. Every single person should be including all 50 skills. Your top 3 skills should be the 3 you want to be most known for. Quite frankly, the reason for this is because most people are lazy. And even though you think it's simple to just click more, the top 3 are the ones you're going to be endorsed for most. Now, why is this important? Well, if you hit 99 endorsements on any one skill, then when somebody does a Boolean search with that particular skill, so let's say project management, you will come up on the top of their search. It doesn't matter if you're lower than 99. It doesn't matter if you're higher than 99. You just have to hit that 99 on that one skill. And then much like SEO, you're going to come up towards the top for when people are looking.
I love that you said that, because that's one of the other questions that come up. So it all ties in together, which is, what's the point of asking for endorsements, and, you know, and what of it all? And now we know there's a clear link. So there you go. And if you need a template for that, put that in the chat and we'll make sure to get you squared away on that, in terms of asking people directly to endorse you. I want to move into this other question about the STAR method. So I've gotten a lot of this: the CAR method, the STAR method, the PAR method. And I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm lumping it together because it's all the same, which is a lot of the questions were around how can I, as a candidate, address the quantifiable result of the method in interviews when I don't have any insight into the results of my contribution. Let's say it was a soft contribution, or you don't have a way to track it or pull the metrics. Does that weaken your story? What's your thoughts? How do you bridge that gap?
All yours, April.
Okay, I'm going to be the honest recruiter for a second.
Please do.
And just say that, you know, when you're in an interview, the biggest thing is the confidence, honestly. Like, you know, no one is going to go audit you. I'm not saying to lie, but I'm saying you can talk about, like, you know, overall, here's what the group did. Here's what the group accomplished. And I was a part of that. I helped them by doing A, B, and C. And like, if you say that with a smile and energy, that is going to be what's remembered. So like, it's hard because, you know, you're in an interview setting, it's nerve wracking, or it can be, you know, but I would say, like, don't sweat too much. Like, it's not a conversation with the IRS. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, we're not like auditing your taxes or something. They want to understand also the metrics of that company. What they need accomplished may be different from what you're accomplishing at your current role. I mean, almost guaranteed that it is, right? So you just want it. They're looking for, how do you have a conversation? How do you how do you recall these successes that you might have had? How do you explain them? How do you talk about the challenges with them? Like, so just in any way, whatever way that you can kind of like relax and just remember that it's a conversation. STAR method is great because it kind of gives you a framework, but like cooking, don't get too freaked out about the exact recipe. You know, throw in a little extra salt or paprika, like as needed, right? It's like bring in a little bit of your improv skills, or, you know, just imagine that you're talking with a friend a bit if you're getting too prescriptive in your answers. That's the advice that I would give.
So I was laughing because you're talking to somebody that's notoriously both made eggs and bacon, both burnt and raw at the same time. I'll disagree a little bit just because it's specific to Amazon. With Amazon, we do believe in the STAR method. Now, here's the thing. We're very aware that there's certain positions where you may not have data or metrics to back up a tangible benefit that you've created with the organization, but there are ways to show how you've made a contribution. So the STAR method, and by the way, I think the one thing April really touched on without saying it is that people get in their own heads way too much about these. Like, the STAR method is not some like novel approach. It's just setting a structure. Most people are utilizing the STAR method without realizing they're utilizing the STAR method. So let's get something straight for the rest of this conversation. Stop overthinking and just start doing. Because half the problem when people are interviewing, half the problem when people are job seeking, is that there's such hype that's being placed on both an emotional and mental level that we don't allow ourselves to realize the truth of the situation. And that is, all we want is for you to be you. If you're in an interview, if you get to a second interview, it is because we have seen something in you that we want. So the biggest fight that you have is understanding this notion and showing up authentically yourself instead of thinking, oh, well, the company wants me to behave a certain way. No, actually.
After much scientific research, we've concluded the answer to be hell no.
Like, that's not what we want. We want you to be you. So stop getting out of your heads, but yeah, I mean, the STAR method, sorry, Lisa, I just remembered this was being recorded and now you have my little button on here. But yeah, it's just do it the best you can, show that you're capable at the work, you've been doing it, and you'll be fine.
That's awesome. I think it's just like you said, you get so worked up on it, and most people are doing the STAR method anyway. So when they follow it to a T, it comes off very unnatural, and recruiters are people too. They want to feel like they're having a conversation and they get a good feel for who you are because they're kind of repping you to the hiring manager, right?
Yeah.
Okay, moving along because we've got a ton to cover. I haven't even gotten to the ones that I want to ask, but who cares about me?
Elisa, I just remembered, you're joining me on Friday, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'll be there.
So here's the deal, everyone. And April, I'll invite you. I want to invite you too. So I run the largest group on LinkedIn that's for job seekers. It's called Job Connection Tuesday Collective. I have 4,500 people. They're some of the top coaches, resume writers, influencers, so on and so forth. Every week I do 2 hours worth of office hours. In addition to taking the list of questions, if we do not get to your questions today and you want to join, please let us know. It is also free. Elisa will be on that call along with Stephanie Nussi, who works for Google, Iana Smith, who's one of the top coaches around, and a number of other of my contemporaries. And we will make sure that we answer your questions. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern on Friday.
That's awesome. Wonderful. And I'll look for it and I'll try to pop it in the chat if you need to look for it. But Job Connections Tuesday is the group.
Yeah,
so
I'll post the link to the group.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Rosa wants to know, so online applications, I hear this a lot. Is one favored over the other, whether it's applying on the company website or the job search site? So there's the LinkedIn Easy Apply button. There's like applying through Indeed versus like maybe applying directly on a site like Amazon or, whatnot. Is there a difference? Do they all just come to you? What are your thoughts?
Do you have an opinion, Dan?
I'm not going to answer this, April. It's all yours.
Okay. So in my experience, they all filter into the same place. So they all funnel to the same place. You're going to get seen regardless. The one benefit to going to the company page is sometimes there's specific questions that are asked there. Like maybe they, can only hire in certain states where the company's incorporated. And so it might ask you on the application, like, are you in these states, right? So if it's a job that gets a ton of response, the recruiter might sift through everyone who has answered the pre-qualifying questions, which don't always show up on the quick apply, on the Indeed and all of that funnel in. So that's like maybe a 3.5% advantage to applying on the direct page, that in my experience.
Awesome. No, it's a good deal. We always get that a lot. I think it's easier to go directly to source. That's what I recommend as well. Okay, so I've got an in-depth question, and if it's okay with the attendee, I'm just going to shorten it. So she's asking about self-publishing and just kind of trying to get traction with companies in her area of expertise, which is speech, UI, and natural language processing. And so she's saying if she wants to publish and get awareness, get companies, recruiters to notice that she's an expert in this field and hire her, where should she publish? LinkedIn, YouTube, Medium, open source.
I'm having I'm having trouble following this one. Can you just repeat it unless April got the gist of
I
it?
read the question and I think I understand. So this is a person who writes like academic papers, right? I think is getting or has received her PhD in natural language processing and is saying like, for the most part, people don't go read academic publications. So how does this person get corporate attention to these accomplishments? Mm-hmm. So what I would say is if I'm looking for like computer vision, natural language processing, any of these type of AI, teaching computers how to how to do all of these things, right? I'm mostly going to be searching for this person on their LinkedIn. And so for me, the way that I would answer this is wherever you publish it, just include the link on your LinkedIn. So if you break down your research in a YouTube video, link that YouTube video, or you could publish it to LinkedIn, or you could publish it anywhere and link that to your LinkedIn. But it is great if you do kind of like a breakdown for the people who don't know all of the insider terms for, whatever highly specified vocabulary that might be in this area. That would be how I would answer that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. It's kind of a tough one because I know the question is layered. And by the way, Andre, if you didn't get the answer, just follow up with Albert and myself, and we can get you connected to some folks that are in the academia space, because it's very specific what you're asking in self-publishing and getting awareness. Menu, hopefully I'm not getting this wrong. She wants to know and this is a question on positioning for you both. How can you reframe or deal with non-linear career narratives in the resume?
So as a clarification,
Mm-hmm.
The simplification is simply, how do you deal with career gaps?
Yeah, I think menu, if you want to type in there like a clarification, feel free to, but I read into it as like, and again, it's personal interpretation, but linear career narratives, it could be career gaps. It could be, I don't know, maybe you were doing marketing and then you pivoted to like people operations because you found that you were good in that. And then you moved into like project manager and whatnot, but there's not a clear path. It's not so much like marketing analyst, then you were a marketing manager, then you were a senior manager, and now you're a marketing director. How would you kind of create a narrative around all these different jumps?
Can I take this one, April?
Yeah, please.
So part of my story that is fairly public is that being neurodiverse, I wound up jumping quite a bit. My degree is in journalism. I was a managing editor for 10 years. I moved out to California, and then I wound up in telecommunications, healthcare. From healthcare, I went into global project management. And then when I got laid off as a result of the pandemic and a couple of other things, I wound up eventually pivoting to what is quite honestly what I'm meant to do in recruitment. And the thing about it is, and this is where this is going to be a no BS answer, there's going to be obvious linear skills that you've utilized, but there's never going to be an easy way to talk about why you flipped. The easiest answer to give is, I just couldn't find my passion, but not every recruiter wants to hear that. And that sucks, because that may be the most honest that you could be. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's still a matter of bias, because they're only looking at it like you can't make a decision and stick to it. Well, what happened in the last 2 years? We have the Great Resignation. There's so many teachers that are going into L&D, going into tech. We have career changers that are moving into project management. Boot camps are at an all-time high. Whose business is it why you switched. If you can do the job, that's all that matters. But there's bias. So here's the deal. If you're switching, there's a couple things that you could do to stand out. There's a lot of free resources, whether it's Coursey, whether you upgrade your LinkedIn to premium and have access to LinkedIn Learning. You want to show that you've done the due diligence to make sure you're up to par in these fields. I would also encourage you to have conversations with those in the field. Get as much information as possible, because if you could talk shop talk, then there's going to be an obvious, like, they're not going to, if you're talking shop talk and you're having a conversation with somebody, they're going to lose sight of the fact that you don't have experience in it, because you're having a conversation. There's no gap in the conversation. So if you could do that, that's going to be a big boon. Now, here's the second part of it, and this is going to be the most difficult to hear. You're going to have to understand when you're looking for a new job, it's not going to be about all the no's, because there's going to be a lot of no's. It's going to be about the one yes. And the thing that you have to realize about all these no's is, if they don't see you for the potential that you have for what you're bringing to the table, if they don't see how hard you've worked to get to this point, then they're not the right company for you anyway. So this is where the entire aspect of mental health within the job search comes in. You need to give yourself grace, because we have this tendency. So I'm going to go into a bit of a rant, but I promise I'll keep it short. I have a huge problem with people calling this a candidates market. When you call something a candidates market, first of all, it can't be because other people are leaving work due to issues with the employer. But when you call something a candidates market, and somebody has a hard time finding a job because they're career transitioning or otherwise, the first thing that they're going to do is wonder, what's wrong with me? We shouldn't be doing that to candidates. When it's a hard market, when it's not a candidates market and you get a job, it's like, oh my God, I got one. I can't believe it. Well, why isn't there that same excitement on all aspects? We shouldn't be beating up job seekers because of the situation surrounding our economy. And we're so fixated on these specific derivative words. So I know I've gone a little bit off task with the answer, but it's something I'm so incredibly passionate about, because we cannot do this to people. This plays such a toll on people's personal lives, family lives. When people are depressed because they're having trouble with career transitions, they're less likely to be as focused and succinct within their job search, which creates a problem getting it anyway. We need to be better. And this is where recruitment as a whole is failing you. You're not failing us. I'm done.
I think you're making a really good point, and a lot of people go through their job search and they're not thinking like, why is this so hard on me? But, like I don't know why I'm bringing the IRS up so much tonight, but here we go. The IRS has what they call like life events, and it's similar to like your health insurance that has life events, but like basically there's extra forgiveness for certain things if you're going through like what's a life event, and they consider like having or adopting a child, death of a close loved one, moving and finding a new job. These are like life events. These are like major stressors. And so like, I think it's natural to really have a lot going on when you're going through a job search. And, honestly, your friends and family might not totally get how stressful it is, but you're trying on a lot of different things for size. And it's not like, something that's going to be peripheral in your life, like what coffee maker do I want to get? This is going to be central, and you're going to, like, it's going to be very involved in your life, what kind of vacations you have, how much free time you have, everything. So I think, yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of that, like it is, if it's rough and it's like a challenging experience for you, like totally get that. And it's not something that's necessarily like front and center with people.
I mean, I'd like 2 thumbs up there. I mean, I think you guys both brought to the table as to like, it's a candidates market, but there's still so many inherent challenges built in, and like people have frustrations about the, the interview process, and then some people are like, well, it's just a job, don't take it personally, it's just, providing money to live. But it's like you're spending 8 hours a day, and that's minimum. Most of us work like, I don't know, 12 to 14 hours. And it's like, and if we are passionate about it, that's a bonus. But most of us maybe don't have that luxury or haven't found that fit yet. And so like what you're doing right now, investing in yourself, is so crucial. And anyways, I mean, we wish everyone luck in this. And so we're glad that you're with us so you can get more
But
insight.
it's not a candidates market. I will fight that term. And we could get into this on my office hours, but the other issue is that recruitment system is not set up to allow for fair and equal payment for minorities. It's not. But that's another topic for another time. That is one of the reasons I say it's not a candidates market.
Yeah, I'm going to throw that out there. We should come back and do an office hours on negotiation, because I hear this a lot. And the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because I work with a lot of women candidates talking about, and it's building confidence, but it's also how to negotiate and ask for what you want. And it's, and there's a lot of fear built in that, because it's like, if I ask for what I want, I'm going to get passed up for the job because I'm asking for too much. And some, other scenarios run through the head. And so I think you both would be able to add a lot to and build the confidence of the job seeker. And hey, if you're the right candidate and you've made it that far, you need to ask for what's right and fair.
But Elisa, what you just said was something so important. One of my focuses is getting more women in tech and getting more women paid, narrowing the gender and racial wealth gap. But here's the problem. When I got appointed a point of contact for diversity within my division of Amazon, I went to women and minorities that were already in the position, said, what can we fix? Well, part of the problem is there's not a lot of women that are in the interview process that have, so what's going on is, whether you're Black, whether you're Asian, whether you're a woman, you're coming in and you're seeing a bunch of guys that look like me. That's not a great thing, because that doesn't give you commonality for which to build off of during the interview process. And then you get in and it's a boys club. And this is one of the underlying issues that we have with retention, because people want to be around people that they have things in common with. But we don't see that. And this is why it's so important to me, and why it's so important to me for my children to bring about this overhaul change, so that we're able to get more women in tech. We're able to get more minorities in places where they're making $300,000, $400,000+. Here's some data for you. But the time between the first white billionaire and first Black billionaire was 165 years. There's only been one, Robert Johnson. That's a problem. We can't get these equal opportunities if we don't have people in roles in the C-suites that are willing to make those decisions and are willing to be people that represent those that are trying to get in.
Yeah. And we're going to solve that overnight, right?
Oh no, we will never solve it in our
Yeah.
lifetime.
We're just all going to chip away from where we're at.
Yeah. I mean, like, every bit counts. It's just like, and I've heard so many different biases against it. And now I'm hijacking the meeting. Sorry, guys. Is that, like, the company's stance is, well, we want to hire the most qualified candidate, and we can't help if they're all look, act, or interests are a certain way. And I just find that that's not acceptable. I hear that all the time though in tech. So I feel like, Dan, you'd be able to speak on that.
Well, so here's the biggest problem I have, and I'm going to keep this as short and concise as I possibly can, because this is like the crux of everything I'm against. So I wrote an article with the help of John Graham, who wrote Plantation Theory. For those that are unfamiliar, he's a friend of Albert and mine. And basically the premise was that all these positions require bachelor's degrees. But if you look at the vast majority of those situations, the hiring manager actually doesn't give a darn where the bachelor degree comes from, which is a problem, because if you're saying to me you just need a bachelor's degree in anything to get a job, and let's say that you have your bachelor's degree in marketing, but you're looking for a job in tech, that means nothing. So for these people, so the people that have the bulk of the money that don't have to take out loans and loans and loans are the top 2% of the population. What's the top 2% of the population made of? White individuals. So now you're saying that those that are in impoverished communities have to then go take loans out, have to go to school where they're paying off debt for the next 50 years just to be able to be in a position to possibly get the same job at the same salary as everyone, as the top 2%. That's bullshit. And I apologize for cursing here, but the fact of the matter is that's only increasing the gender and racial wealth gap, because you're having these people that are starting off from a place of balance and are just increasing their the amount in their bank account, and you have this other demographic of people that we're not allowing to have a possibility to get these roles because we are placing unrealistic, unnecessary expectations. So my question to every company I have been is, are you willing to not be as hard on these BQs? Because here's the thing, there's a lot of people that learn coding because they're just plain interested. They have the passion for it. They want to do it. They have the wherewithal to say, here's a problem, I want to create a solution. So what makes that person worse off to be an employee than somebody that just went to school for computer science? And my answer is nothing. I'd rather have that candidate every day, all day, because those are the people that are going to be the culture. Those are the people that are going to make a difference. And those are the ones that I want on my team. And if nobody else that looks like me is willing to say it, good, they could kiss it where the sun don't shine. I'll take them. Sorry. You got me passionate, Lisa. Like, this
I
is
know.
like,
I was kind of like, oh man, we got to touch upon these things. But I just, to everybody that's listening here, we're going to have a follow-up session on this. And it could be just greater on, I know a lot of people want to hear about negotiations, but it could be like just equity in the workplace in general. That's a whole session that could fill itself. But
Several sessions, yeah.
yeah, let me shift gears a little bit, because I know a fair amount of people came on because there's, and I hate to say it, it's like a buzzword, neurodivergence, right? And so I want to get the take from you both on a candidate that's neurodiverse. How can that impact recruiting? And for a candidate that is such, how can they prepare for the interview process and be successful as AKA? That's essentially what they're asking.
Do you want to take this one down? I feel like you have probably a lot more insights. Like, I know that companies, clients that I'm working with are trying to understand this, trying to like improve how they screen people. But I'm not going to have the same kind of insights as you do.
I just also feel bad because I know I've gone on a couple rants and I actually really want to hear you. So I may have to like just hijack a conversation that you're in just so that I could hear it back. So this is a very difficult conversation for me because the American with Disability Act protects those that deal with anxiety, depression, and neurological and and that have neurodiversity. And just as a clarification, neurodiversity covers anything that's not neurotypical. So it encapsulates ADHD, people on the autism spectrum, Asperger's, so on and so forth. So I want to cover that. The reality is that bias permeates society in every possible way. And the reason that I speak up is because I know that not everybody has the opportunity or affordability to be able to be open and honest and go into an interview environment and say, hey, I'm neurodiverse, this is what I need to do. Because there are inherent biases that you're going to face. Companies feel like differences mean that there's going to be additional pay that's required, additional accommodations. The reality, quite frankly, is that the differences that we have, the hyper focus, the ability to think 6 steps ahead, are all intrinsic qualities that actually make us a benefit to organizations that produce an ROI. But companies don't want to see this. They just see disability and automatically assume that it's the same context and connotation that it has been for the last 50 years, when for the last 50 years, the only reason it had those connotation is because we hadn't explored it enough and hadn't spoken about it enough in the first place. So here's the deal. I'm going to bring this in. To me, the greatest DEI recruiter globally, her name is Monique Arrington. She's a dear friend of mine, love her to death. And she made this comment to me. She said, when you're neurodiverse, first thing you do is you make the company fall in love with you. Once you get to the hiring manager stage, you've shown what you could do. Then you disclose your neurodiversity. And you can ask for accommodations to be written into the contract. If the company then breaks these accommodations, then they are liable for that. But we're still at a point you want them to fall in love with you first. And I tend to agree, even though you do have people like me and a few others that are standing up and trying to make it more communally understood and accepted. Now, these accommodations could be everything from working from home, because people that are neurodiverse have a tendency of needing to stand up, fidget around, which can otherwise be distracting to people in the workforce. It could be taking extended breaks. It could be a large number of things, but any way you put it, if a company is not accommodating you, that means that they're specifically saying, I don't want the best version of you. And the best version of you is going to make them the most money. So the data backs it up. I'll end it there.
I did think of one other little insight to add here, which is like one of my clients, hiring manager, runs the whole recruiting aspect for this company, is someone neurodiverse. So while, you may not be aware of it, there's also people in place who also, and also everyone's different. Some of what you're saying would be a good accommodation, like working from home, needing to fidget, moving around. Neurotypical people need some of these things too. Neurotypical people can benefit from working from home because it gives them the opportunity to pick their kids up at a different time or what have you. So when, a lot of the focus on diversity and inclusion in hiring is centered around like making sure that whatever position you're hiring for has a clearly defined rubric, right? We're looking for these skills. We're looking for you to do these things. Maybe we need you to speak this language or have these like competencies of managing relationships or whatever that you have. So if you struggle in other areas, you can re-emphasize or just get clarity, like what is the rubric that you're kind of like evaluating candidates on? What are the essential skills and what are the nice to haves? Like just, you can get really clear. And if you want to see it like a math equation, like I hit 100% of the must haves and 70% of the nice to haves, and like kind of frame your experience in that way, I think that can help as well.
Great. I appreciate that, because I know that was one of the topics, and Dan shared a lot. It was a lot to unpack, and I love the little visitor that we're seeing. I just want to throw another thing out there, which is, I know Dan said, and thanks to Monique Arrington for that, just sharing kind of the truth of how to, hack into your dream company if they're not, if they don't have resources for neurodiverse, is once you get to that point where you're considered a serious candidate, just ask for what what availability or resources are out there. And you might be surprised, because like he was saying, a lot of bigger companies, the tech companies, this is a trending area and it's a rise, and human resources, they are trying to address it. They might not be moving as fast as you want them to, but don't rule yourself out yet in thinking your mind doesn't conform, so you're totally not in the game. You could be valued for those very skill sets. So once you're a more serious candidate, I encourage everyone to ask that question of what resources are available for me once I start with the company to ensure that I'm successful, and take it from there. Shifting gears a little bit. So I know that April and Dan are fairly active in social media. So one of the big questions has been, I'm a job seeker. How can I use social media effectively to enhance my job search, get my name out there?
I think it can be a great tool because of the way that marketing works, actually. So in marketing, right, you try to get small commitments from people. Like first, like pretend I'm an email marketer. First, I'm going to try to get you to open my email. Then I'm going to try to get you to click on a link in my email. Then I'm going to try to get you to sign up for newsletter. Then maybe like, 6 commitments in, I'm going to try to get you to make a purchase. So LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to basically market yourself in the same way to the people. Like you can customize your audience. Basically, you can try to connect with and reach out to specifically people that are in your field, could be your hiring managers. And then if you post content that's relevant or you interact with what they're posting, you can get these little buy-ins from them. And then by the time you reach out with requesting that informational interview that Dan suggested, or you want to ask them for a referral recommendation, you're like a familiar figure, and they have made these small commitments to you, and those smaller commitments breed larger commitments. The one thing that I see that I would be careful about is LinkedIn basically publishes everything that you like and everything that you interact with, right? So like, I would try to keep your LinkedIn interactions on brand to what you're trying to go for. So it's not like, you're not on a different social media platform where it's like, oh, I love this. This is so uplifting necessarily, because if you're connecting with the people that you want to be your audience, like say I'm talking about machine learning, right? And then I'm talking about, I'm interacting with a lot of stuff that is not that. It's basically advertising this other activity that you have that's not really what you're trying to portray to the audience that you're connecting to. So I would say that. And also, we all feel terrible when we get rejections, or like maybe you had a job that you almost got and it didn't follow through, or you were the silver medalist, as we put it, like one other candidate had something just slightly closer match that they thought. So like, just don't vent your frustrations here. Think of it as kind of like your PR, and then tell your friends, or, vent your frustrations elsewhere. That's what I would say, because for some people, say you're connected to like a hiring manager, their connections are also going to see that. So you don't want their connections to have the first interaction with you, or their first impression of you to be, like something either totally irrelevant or something that is like a frustration. That would be my advice on job seeking, using LinkedIn, using some of these. I don't think that really any other social media site is great for that, except maybe like specific Facebook groups, right? Like Albert's List Facebook group is a great place for networking. I'm in Women's College Alum Network, which is a great one, so if you're in a specific group. But aside from that, I think LinkedIn is basically the only social media that you would use that way.
So I'm going to provide some data, and then there was a question that was asked that I could touch on that includes this. There's 800 million plus active users on LinkedIn. Of that, as of 6 months ago, 1.7% were content creators. That's increasing because of the focus that LinkedIn is putting on content creation. What this means is that if you disseminate that by job category, anybody can be considered an expert in any given field. All you need to do is post. And social audio and social media have a very, very quick way of having you stand out. So whether it's commenting on others or putting forth your specific opinion, by providing consistency and authority in a given area, you can look very, very good to companies. And that's an integral part of it. Now, somebody brought up Twitter. Social audio has become the next wave. By the way, my screen is frozen. Can everybody hear me? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so social audio has become the next wave. When Clubhouse first came out last year, there were recruitment rooms that I was participating in that we would get 1,000 people. And at first there was this idea where job seekers would come up and ask questions, and then there were different iterations. Twitter Spaces just opened up. Now some of the people from Clubhouse are going onto Twitter to do these rooms. Recruiters are posting jobs through there. So that's specifically how it's seen. I will tell you point blank, flat out, my belief is that all of this will mean nothing once LinkedIn fully rolls out their LinkedIn audio, which is currently in beta. And the reason I believe this is because LinkedIn is one of the greatest tools for recruiters. If we can have rooms with candidates where we're talking about our jobs, what this allows to happen is for us to shave off about 33% of the time that it would normally take from contact through completion of the interview process. The reason for this is because by having these rooms, as we're discussing with candidates, we could be looking at profiles, we could have you send us resumes, and we automatically have that connection. So the way it would normally work is we reach out to you, we have to hear back, then we have to schedule something, and then we have to wait for that scheduling, and then it goes on like that. But if you could take that out and have that immediate connection right off the bat, then that's where that 33% reduction comes from, which I think is a benefit. So to me, I know that Twitter was mentioned, but that is where I see it going. That is what I have brought up to the hiring managers at Amazon. And I see it as a really useful tool. Like flat out, once LinkedIn audio is cultivated for groups, that's going to be where all my office hours are housed. Because I think it's such a useful tool, and we should all be looking for how we can make the interview process better for all involved, how we can make it shorter for all involved. This 6 weeks to 8 weeks thing is too long. It's too anxiety filled.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, that was kind of a big just topic in general for most folks, which is usually you'll go on LinkedIn when you want to look for a new job, or you lost your job or you're unhappy at your job and now you're looking. And so if anything, like, I mean, Dan and Abel just highlighted, like, if you haven't done it yet, it's time to double down on LinkedIn. Like you could get so much just from the platform, and not just getting on there when you need a referral or you need to reconnect with a connection that you haven't talked to in several years. Like I'll get off my soapbox, but I like to reach out to people early and often, like during holidays, I'll reach out to people and say, like, happy Thanksgiving, like, how are you doing? And it doesn't have to be like a full-on dissertation. It could just be like, I'm thinking of you. And then that way, the way LinkedIn is set up, there's kind of a chat reference. So the next time you ask them and say, hey, I'm interested in a job at Discord, I know you just moved there, I'd love to set up an informational interview with you. It's not so out of the blue, right? So anyways, I know we're all eagerly waiting for LinkedIn audio, so hopefully that will come around sooner rather than later.
Well, if anybody is interested in seeing how it plays out, please let me know. I'm going to be doing a LinkedIn audio room with Kristen Gallucci, who's been a LinkedIn top voice, I think 3 times. We're trying to figure out when, and I have access to a number of other people that are doing it for those purposes. So just let me know, and so you could gather it and check it out.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. Okay. If there's any more social media questions, throw it in the chat. I want to move to some quick wins in the chat in terms of questions. Once you engage with someone on LinkedIn, so it's fairly social media related, who works at the company you're pursuing, is it a negative thing to come right out at the end and ask them to get your resume to the hiring manager or recruiter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Build the relationship first.
Yeah. They need to understand why you're a good fit, what you bring to the table. Because again, you're asking them to leverage their reputation. And in most places, you get paid a referral bonus for referring someone in. So they're motivated, right? Like they don't have to do it out of the goodness of their heart. So you don't have to worry about like putting them out, but you need to give them a good reason, because say you were to come on and then, you know, you get hired and then you quit or you leave, that person's reputation is now taking a hit at their company. So they're actually putting like themselves on the line. You need to actually connect with them, understand them.
Great feedback. Moving into resumes, and I hear this a lot, which is, and for Kim, she's in UX design, so it's a little bit unique, but it could be UX design, it could be arts, it could be like graphic design or anything, but she's asking if her resume should be designed or more straightforward, like Microsoft Doc or PDF.
I don't work in this space, April, and I hate talking about resumes, so all yours.
Okay, I'll take this. For design, the portfolio is the most important thing. So make sure your portfolio looks good and make sure there's a link to your portfolio on the resume. I think the biggest thing with resumes is you don't want your resume to be an image folder. It needs to be readable text, because this is where it might become, you know, like the applicant rejection. What did you say? Applicant rejection system. Like I've seen resumes that you can't, it's just an image. So you have to actually read it. The computer can't parse the letters. So it's fine if it's a PDF, a Word, whatever it is, but the letters need to be there rather than it being like a JPEG or something.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I attended another webinar, and I think the technical recruiter said that if you're sending it to someone, like maybe you got the email, the hiring manager or whatever, if you're doing it via email, send it in PDF, but if it's through ATS, just do it in Microsoft Doc, and then very straightforward, simple text, etc.
Well, even a PDF should have readable text, but some designers get very fancy and they literally export it as a photo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So then it's like, you don't have any more clickable links. Like you can't click. And it sounds silly, but I mean, everybody on this call, I'm sure, is guilty of this. Like if it's not easy, you just back out, you know, like we've all been like shopping online and it wasn't like easy transaction. And we're like, wait, do I really need this? No, I don't, you know, so you don't want your resume to have that experience. So you need, like, if you're going to link to your LinkedIn, make sure it's hyperlinked so they can click there and it takes them there. Put your portfolio and make sure that it clicks there. But that's the biggest rejection reason that I see for UX, UI, you know, brand design, any of that, is just the portfolio either doesn't show enough end-to-end design, or you know, at that point it's stylistic, right? It's qualitative and it's subjective. So they're looking for something, and for whatever reason, you have a different style.
So the only thing I'm going to add is I fully expect to get a whole bunch of questions after this. Please don't ask me about resumes. Resumes and Blippy are the two things I hate most in the world right now. So I appreciate it. Please direct those questions at April.
I can take your resume questions. I have looked at 50 resumes a day for 12 years, and I can take a look and give you some quick feedback.
That's awesome. Okay, so it's actually a take on it. So Emily had a question. She said, I go on so many interviews, but never get the job. It kind of reminds me of like always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But how can I better prove to the employer that I'm a great fit in the interview, even if I don't meet all their requirements or work experiences?
The short answer is that for most companies, you should hit the BQs, the basic qualifications. A lot of companies will disqualify you if you don't. But in terms of standing out, I feel like it's almost irresponsible for companies if you're getting to the final round of the interview and then you're becoming the bridesmaid at the end, because they've known from the start what your background is. So to me, that speaks volumes about the company lacking consistency and understanding of what they're looking for. As far as ways for you to stand out, to me, this is going to probably suck for you to hear, but I mean this in the best possible way. You're probably doing nothing wrong. It may just be that those jobs aren't the ones you're meant for. I know how hard it is to internalize that statement because I've been there, but it's simply the truth.
When I look at job seeking, I think of it in like there's stages, right? So like there's different gates that you want to get through. So you want to get through the resume review gate and be shortlisted for a conversation. Then you have the initial screening call. That's another gate. Then you have the, if the recruiter says, hey, I think you're great, they pass you on to the hiring manager, you have their review. That's a gate that's out of your control, right? And then maybe they invite you for however many rounds of interviews. So if you focus on all of the areas where you have control, where you have some influence, and then let it go from there. So that person who's going on a lot of interviews, I'm curious to know, like, are those the recruiter screens? Are they having a lot of rejections, like when they're meeting with a team, when they're having panels? And it might be a thing of kind of dialing in where they're applying, what type of roles.
Okay. So we're nearing the end of the hour, but like I said, I'm going to copy and paste the questions. We're going to go over it in Dan's office hours, or we're also set up a separate session. So don't feel like you're getting cut off. I'll also put my LinkedIn in the chat, and April and Dan's as well, if you need to connect with us directly. But I wanted to throw out just one more question. It's by Raymond. And I also hear this very often, which is, I mean, in his case, it's final interviews, but just interviews in general. And his are at several tech companies next week, but he's got somewhat of a mental block where he's struggling to generate stories that highlight impact and UVA. And this is also sort of a take on the STAR method, writing stories of where you've been able to show impact as related to the role you're applying for. What are your both take on getting over blocks like these, or building out the stories, or things you should be hitting during the interviews?
April, do you want to take this first? Because I'm probably going to talk about it more from the mental aspect.
I think the first thing is to get out of your own way as much as you can. Like, do the obvious things, but you don't self-sabotage. Like, if you can just take that out of the equation, it might give you a 20 or 30% boost. So like taking a minute and like, Lisa, did I understand your question correctly, that you want us to clarify? You know what I mean? Like, first, let me get clarification and make sure also that you're just doing obvious things, like not talking over the interviewer. Asking, okay, let me clarify, because I want to make sure this makes sense in the context of your organization. Like, I have an example that I could share, but, is this the kind of thing you're talking about, before you delve into something? You don't want to put your interviewer in the place where they're trying to be polite and let you finish, but you're totally off track. So taking a minute and clarifying is one like easy thing. I'm just trying to think of like common things that I've heard where it's like a super easy, obvious thing. And I think that's the biggest one. Understanding the question that you're answering, and then trying to get clarity and just give a concise answer, and try to leave a little space in case that hiring manager has clarifying questions. You can go into that. Don't eat it all up with your answer.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Real quick, Dan, just want to make sure that his questions, or his or her question, is answered correctly. I think it's like when you're preparing for an interview and you're writing stories of like potential questions that could be asked during the interview in the STAR method, storytelling, and you have a mental block. How do you get over that?
Yeah, I knew where that was going, and I'm not going to provide the answer to the question in the sense that I'm not going to tell you what to write. I think that a lot of the answer to the question is actually articulated in the question, and that's simply that you're in your own head. I mentioned earlier that when you get to this stage of the interview, the company likes you. They have said, I want this person to come in. I want to spend the time. Remember something. Every single interviewer that you are meeting with is getting paid to be there. So the company is spending money because they want you in that spot. The sooner you realize that it is not your job to do anything other than show them what they've already seen and back up their belief in you, the more confidence you're going to have, and that block has a tendency of going away. Now, if that still doesn't work, here's what I recommend. And this is coming from somebody that spent 10 years as a managing editor. There's two ways that you go about this. One is I take a book and I will sit there. Here's my current book, The Color of Law. I will pick a page out and I will start writing from this book. And then eventually, once I stop thinking, it just flows. It's about getting you to get out of your own head. The other thing is you could simply do the same thing with something that, with an answer to a question that you've already written, and just rewrite it. Look for those idiosyncrasies. Just, it's just a mind shift. But you're going to get there. You're going to be fine. And I guarantee you're going to do a lot better than you think you are right now.
Practice interviews with friends can be helpful too. Just having the chance to say your answer out loud and hear yourself say it and think of, oh, I could have added this, or actually, depending on how your friend might respond, or, if you have someone like in a group like this, people could get together and do mock interviews for each other. If you have anyone like that in your network.
Awesome. We have to close the session now because I think Albert has another session running, but I could go on for hours with you guys because you guys are a fun group, so engaging on chat, and something one person says triggers me into something else. And I even came to it with a list of questions that other folks had raised. So I have to close this out, but as Dan shared, he's doing office hours for Job Connection Tuesdays on Friday. He posted the link in the chat. And if there's enough interest, please message me and let me know, because I'd love to set up a follow-up to this, just to maybe hone in on a couple of specific topics that I know, we'd like further insight on with whether it's salary negotiations or pay equity or whatnot. So if that's of interest, let me know. But I will go ahead and close this session out. Thank you so much for spending part of your Wednesday evening with us. Thank you to Dan and April for volunteering their time and giving back to this community, Albert's community, as well as everyone that's joining us from wherever you are in your career in the world. We'd love to stay connected. Please do connect and follow Dan and April, because they often share insights and they're active on LinkedIn. And if there's anything I can support you on or add value, feel free to message me as well. But go ahead and close it out. Thanks so much.
Everybody, remember, if you're in the job search mode, this is work. Please give yourself grace and the knowledge to know that you're doing everything that you can. Mental health is such a key. Sometimes we just need to breathe and realize that we're worthy of that next opportunity, and we'll be there. Have a great night, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Take care.